Good morning, Mr. Chairman, and assembled compatriots. I think it's probably the safest description. I won't use comrades. Before I talk about as President of the Liberal Party, can I say as a Liverpool councillor, I have spent the last 5 days uniquely in Liverpool. The level of budget cutbacks the council is having to incur of 28%. I mean, very behind Graham's Manchester of 25%. Has resulted in the Labour administration has invited all the opposition parties sit together on a joint budget working party. The size of the crisis is that big. And we've started our budget process discussing with the voluntary groups, and I've met with the Chamber of Commerce. I regret both the two of the other opposition parties refused to take their responsibility and join that budget working party. So if I feel a bit distraught, it's because I've been in 3 days of meetings on the budget. But it does have direct bearing on here today. I wonder how many councils would not be having to shut libraries, schools, children's centres if we weren't having to subsidise the European Union with our taxes. And I could make many of the points that were made by the previous speakers, but I do, from the Liberal tradition, want to make a challenge that I have made here and I made here previously on the referendum. What is liberal about promising to give people a referendum and then have your members of parliament mince out of parliament before you allow them to vote, Mr. Clegg? Whether you are for the European Union or not, it is essentially fundamental that all the three major parties promised us a referendum on the Lisbon Treaty, which is a constitution all but name, and extra clauses if to boot, and all three renegade on that approach. That is a tragedy of democracy, and it is a travesty of justice, and it is a disgrace and blur upon politics in this country. I have to say this hall has special meanings to me because I am a Liberal and a Methodist, and our party was formed largely from the nonconformist tradition, where people had a slight tinge of cynicism about the appointed and preferred the democratic. And with that in vain, I make no polish to say one of the other impetuses of the Liberal Party was the belief in free trade. Why should working people have to pay tariffs to buy basic foodstuffs was the cause of the creation of the Liberal Party and the free trade tradition. That criticism was true when the Liberal Party started, and my God, it's true today. Why should our people have some of the highest rising costs of livings, Mr. Cameron and Mr. Clegg, so we can subsidise the inept farmers of the Red Mediterranean countries? That is not liberalism, it is the antithesis of liberalism. Mr. Cameron, you've had a friendly chat with the utilities about our rising prices. Don't have a friendly chat. Give us the vote to leave the EU. Let us make that choice. And I was coming down the motorway on the M6 and I heard George Osborne. And actually, I might surprise people. George Osborne said some things I would agree with. He was saying there's a terrible crisis in Greece and another loan or international bailout isn't working. Damn right, George Osborne. The fact is, the idea that all the European countries should be pushed into one superstate structure without political union is an economic nonsense. You can't have fiscal and monetary union without political union, and you can't have political union that's going to work across such a diverse Europe. We want Europe's strength is diversity, not uniformity. Europe is diverse by politics, it's diverse by religion, it's diverse by political culture, and it's that diversity and pluralism that makes Europe the power engine in the world. We should not lose that strength. because of political conformity. It's unusual in politics to congratulate the ruling parties when you're in opposition. But as a Liberal, I don't have a problem about that. I believe that government got it right over the Libyan crisis. It was right to get rid of a benign dictatorship, and it was right to let the Libyan people choose their future. Well, do we have to bring up NATO and have a no-fly zone over Westminster? Because we want the right to determine our future, and we are the British liberation movement here today. We want the right to vote on our country. It's our country. It belongs to us and not politicians.